In the early 1900s, French psychologist Pierre Janet studied what he called désagrégation, the splitting of consciousness under trauma. Janet studied several patients whose traumatic histories had led to what modern science calls multiple personality disorder. Severe trauma in childhood can fragment the mind into different parts, known as alters. The purpose of the alter is to spare the individual the trauma, so the individual consciousness is unaware of the alter. They exist separately. According to history, this has been understood for millennia, and these alters can be programmed and trained, and can hold information inaccessible to the core personality. You can trace this knowledge all the way back to the Egyptian mystery schools, to the Knights Templar, and through all the various secret societies that followed. The neurological research has shown that the alters are different people with different brain activation patterns, autonomic responses, visual acuity, and allergic responses. Some alters speak languages that the individual can't. This explains why these alters were seen as demonic possession in the past, and why many still see it that way. Government studies on combat veterans after World War I showed that extreme stress can produce amnesia and identity disruption. During World War II, Dr. Josef Mengele experimented with traumatizing children, and beginning in 1945 with Operation Paperclip, the United States began recruiting several scientists involved in this research into the CIA. The CIA's Project Bluebird attempted to create amnesia in people with hypnosis, drugs, and electroshock. This continued with Project Artichoke, where the CIA added sensory deprivation and forced morphine addiction. A 1952 memo shows they were looking to see if a person could be made into an unwitting assassin. In the MK-Ultra program, the CIA added a psychological trauma they called psychic driving, often administered while the person was under the influence of LSD. And with Project MK-Often, the CIA began experimenting with demonic possession and looking into occult rituals that could influence behavior. According to scores of victims, many of whom have mysteriously died or disappeared, the world stage is cast with psychotic victims of trauma-based mind control, with multiple personalities who do exactly what they are told. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino of the U.S. Army's Psychological Operations, who founded the Satanic Temple of Set in 1975 and managed to get it listed in the U.S. Army Chaplain's Handbook, published a paper in 1980, From PSYOP to Mind War, The Psychology of Victory, that suggested targeting the domestic population with ELF waves and any other type of technology available that could control behavior. There is a trauma-based mind control light version for the entire population, known as effective management and crisis capitalization, strategies of using stress and fear to induce regression and make the population dependent on authority figures or comfort objects. Terror management theory has demonstrated that when subjects were shown imagery of death or disasters, they were more likely to vote for authoritative leaders who promised safety and purchase luxury items they didn't need. A frightened population demands more policing, they tolerate more surveillance, and they prefer to stay indoors. When the population is subjected to mass trauma, they fall into a state of collective dissociation, and unpopular policies are pushed through that would not be accepted by a logical, thinking mental state, like the Patriot Act, or a governmental system run by artificial intelligence. Greg Reese reporting.